Mhm.
Hi everyone, today I got a special guest for you. I know many of you realize that I mostly interview women on my show, but today I have a very special guest. I met Bill Cohen in a e-woman network actually, and he will tell you why that happens, why we met there. But I was really taken by Bill's warmth and friendliness, and he was really willing to share his knowledge, and I think it's going to be a great interview. So a little short introduction, because I think I'm going to let Bill to tell you the story, right? So, but he's the founder of Cohen Caregiving Support Consultants. He's a certified senior advisor based in Oregon. But obviously nowadays, not most businesses provide support online. But I think today we're going to pick his brain, literally, and also have a conversation about, I think, the field of carers and support, because I think this is something we overlook quite a lot. So welcome to my show, Bill.
Thank you, and good morning to you. Good afternoon here in the States, at least on the Pacific Coast. And I'm excited and very honored to be here as one of your rare male guests.
I think you're the second, or if not the
Really,
third.
that rare?
Yeah, because it just happens that, on my show, I often talk about tips and tricks, to help women to improve their productivity, the lifestyle, and talk about goddess and all these things, very women focused. And actually there are times that I think it's really great to have perspective and knowledge from men. And meeting you, I thought definitely I jump into this opportunity. And if we look at the background, we can see that Bill is providing Alzheimer's and dementia support specifically. So obviously the first question totally makes sense is to ask you about your origin story. What led you to create this business of supporting other carers?
Mhm. Thanks for asking. So I think the best way to say it is this. If you had asked me about 17 or so years ago what was going to transpire, and that I'd be sitting here today and talking to you and doing what I do, I'd say you were crazy because you couldn't make up this scenario. It just was too unfathomable because I'm living in Oregon. My mom lived in Biloxi, Mississippi. And notice I don't talk like a Southerner, so I'm not from there. And while I was working full time, she was showing some signs of something. We weren't sure what. And things like paranoia, confusion, memory loss. She wasn't taking care of the finances, and she was a whiz with them. She was a whiz with a computer. She was an early adopter of a Mac back in the 80s
No way. Is she
when
one of
she
those
was
grandma that would drink Coca-Cola and all that kind of stuff?
something like that. She was in her 60s. She in the 1980s, and she adopted a Mac. And plus, she was a professional printmaker. She was a professional artist. So seeing this decline in her and not being able to do what she used to do was very concerning, but we didn't know what it was. She was in the caregiver role for my late stepfather. And we were thinking, okay, maybe she's getting worn out. She's tired. She's stressed, right? Well, we were wondering if he passed away or went into a care community, would she bounce back? Unfortunately, what happened in this week, in
Oh,
2005 in the Gulf Coast of Mississippi and New Orleans, Hurricane
mm,
Katrina.
right.
The house that had survived all the other storms was completely swept away in the storm surge. And this was a few miles inland. It was that bad on the back
Mhm.
bay. So she had evacuated. She was safe, but she came back and saw it completely gone. The
What a
trauma,
shock.
yes, exactly. The shock, the trauma exacerbated or accelerated whatever was coming on with her. We knew it was probably some form of at least mild cognitive impairment, if not dementia. We weren't thinking Alzheimer's. Who's going to jump to that conclusion? Or I was in a little denial too.
Yeah,
Uh,
understandable.
so she was evacuated. She was a couple other family members on the East Coast for a couple of years. I'm doing the long distance caregiving, making trips to first North Carolina and Florida. I'm sure your listeners know the geography. And while I was starting to attend a support group, started talking to a care community, and I moved her out here in 2008. She's a few years in that care community I wanted her to be in. It was faith-based, nonprofit, really good care. And she was about 4 years in memory care. And she passed away 8.5 years ago at age 83 from Alzheimer's. It became obvious that's what was wrong with her. She had all the symptoms. Now, I was attending that support group. I thought, okay, I'll go for a little while longer and I'll help others through the journey like others helped me. I became the facilitator. That was not what I was expecting. And it was a surprise, but I had been through the whole journey. I'd experienced everything. And I used to facilitate meetings at work. So it did become a natural thing. Then I got involved with fundraising and advocacy at our state capitol, et cetera. But as I approached retirement with a 25-year government job, completely unrelated, had nothing to do with social work, medical care, anything, I came across, I thought I was just going to do more volunteer work, but I came across this concept of a caregiving support consultant. And what I do is I provide advice and support and resources and referrals to family caregivers who are feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, alone, hopeless, right? Stressed out, and help them to sleep better at night, reduce their stress, help them manage the care and the behaviors. So basically what I did was I turned my personal loss and my pain into my passion and my encore career.
Love it. And, as you know, when we prep for this interview, my second question was supposed to ask you, where did you pivot and how and why? Your story illustrates beautifully how that happened. So, but what I wanted to ask you now is that, you did mention that you put her in a very nonprofit faith-based community for her memory care, did you say? And like that, and then also just your journey. I wanted to say or ask in a way, sometimes the universe has a plan and has a thread through, your previous job training or experience in terms of facilitating, or the fact that the timing was kind of, pretty smooth, that you're retiring and that's the need and that you have the capacity to help and get into that space. It felt like a story. It's like a movie story where there's a script, there's a timeline. It's all sort of like predestinated in some way, even though the actors almost felt like, I didn't think that would happen.
No.
And I think it was beautiful just to see how, when you follow that, divine guidance, which I think you must be open to if you have put her in a faith-based community, to trust that path, because you were led one step, another. Like she probably wouldn't have gone into that state so quickly or been, diagnosed without Katrina. So everything, good or bad, positive, negative, can be relative, because these all play a part to lead us to a journey to where you are right now. Because it felt like your second half of your life, post retirement, the mission and purpose is to provide care and support for people who needed you, and you have walked the journey. So I think that was pretty amazing story. I mean, do you reflect on it and you went like, wow, that's exactly like a movie?
Exactly. This is what I was meant to do, because everything I did before, I had 3 other major careers.
Major career, as in you spent some time in it.
Right. Nothing fueled my passion like this does. Right. This is a purpose. Everything I'm doing, including the fundraising, et cetera, and helping as many people as possible, is in my mother's memory and honor. And the others did not do that.
You do it with such a passion, but sometimes, especially when we're younger, when we pursue something with passion, we get burned out because there's this drive and ambition behind it. But I felt when your second half in your life, when you pursue something, it's a true inner calling. It doesn't burn, it warms. So I feel a distinctive difference. And also a lot of people when they're younger, there's such a challenge to find a passion, want to make it happen. There's that sort of energy. And to be honest, sometimes it's not up to us. You wouldn't have thought about that, after 3 careers, this will actually land itself that way. And sometimes we're trying to rush things, but it's not meant to be. Like, it's okay to find a passion or true calling or things like that later in life. And also they change, like they refine and they evolve. So I think it's a beautiful story.
And what's interesting is that, yeah, the others were all unrelated to what I'm doing now. However, the common thread is customer service and helping people. And I have 2 business degrees, which helps me to advise people. All the legal stuff I had to do for my mom helps me with people. Having a government background helps me take care of people because I can speak the language and advise them. And that's not my specialty, law or financial services or what have you, but I can direct them to the right people who do have those expertise. In fact, what I like to say is, okay, I'm going to direct you to an elder law attorney to help you with your legal affairs. And if they ask me specifically, said, I don't practice law. I'll tell you which things you should be considering.
But you know enough to
legal advice.
Yeah, you can be the traffic director. And I think this is beautiful. When you say none of them are related, I just love this elbow thing because my daughter does that. You say that's not related. I say it's completely related. So let's change gear a little bit. I want to say something about the role of carer, because from my culture, my background is Chinese. So I grew up in Hong Kong and China until I was a teenager, and then I moved to Europe. So I have been exposed to both East and West. And I think what I love about the Asian culture is the family culture, where it's very normal for the young looking after the elderly, and living with grandma is a blessing and never a what do you call it, burden. And for generations we often live with our older relatives, and sometimes even uncle and auntie. It's quite normal, and that's in our culture, and that's the positive side. But the negative side is also the expectation that to care for someone, and sometimes especially women in that situation, it could be like, there are many stories just like in the West as well, that you're the youngest daughter or the oldest daughter, which what have you. If you haven't been married and you don't have your own family, you kind of be appointed in silence to look after the older aging parents. And sometimes there is this, because of this expectation, and obviously sometimes we love to, but there's very little in terms of thinking how we care for this carer, because you see them. I saw many of my family members that they took that role with courage and they got a great job, but there's not so much about thinking for them, caring for them, let alone go external to get support. It's not really being spoken of in our culture. So I kind of want to ask you, how, like, sometimes people are really tired and they're not really quite themselves, or maybe a little bit frustrated or sad, whatever. So how do you, let's say, start this conversation with carer that they may need support?
Okay, let me take us one step back because of what you were just saying. That's absolutely true in some cultures, and it used to be in most cultures that we would take care of our family, extended family, multi-generational, would take care of each other within the home. But we don't see that as much anymore, especially in the States. But some cultures, Asian, some Latino cultures, that they still do that. But it's harder and harder to find because we're all spread out all over, if not just the country, the world, right?
Yes.
So, and this is, you pointed out that it often falls upon one family member, and it is mostly women, although men more and more are stepping up. It has, here in the States at least, it's been more like, used to be 1 out of 5 caregivers or carers were men. Now it's more like 1 out of 3. But it is still a women's issue. The caregivers, the care recipients, and the professionals are like 80 to 85% women, which if you want, we can talk about it some more, but that's why I did join eWomen and become an email. because Alzheimer's and dementia is definitely a women's issue. So most of my clients are, although I've helped somebody from their 20s because they had a parent who had early onset in their 50s to 80s, spouse or an older sibling perhaps. But most of my clients, and my social media metrics bear this out, 80 to 85% women, 35 to 65 adult children, and they're seeing those first signs of concern with a aging family member. So the sooner that I can talk to them, the better, because they can prepare, they can plan, they can be proactive and not have to react in a crisis, like a stroke or a fall that breaks a hip or something. That's where I can come in and help them put together their team, navigate. But what I do when I start talking to them is asking a lot of questions, like any professional, including yourself. Do a lot of listening, find out what their stressors, what their burdens, how can I help take some things off their plate, give them some comfort, help them sleep better at night. And what I do is, again, I bring together the team, navigate the journey for them, coordinate it, instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to take care of this one thing like home health care, and that's it. That's not doing the complete job. That's only part of the puzzle. That's only one part of the care. So to sum up in another way is I help them manage the care of their loved one, help them manage the behaviors, practice self-care, which is so important, and maybe a little preventive care as well, maintain their own health.
So I got two sub-questions in that sense. So first of all, maybe share with us, because you're obviously very experienced in this field, even though you would not, say that you're a medical professional or a doctor, physician, but you've seen enough. So can you share with us some signs that, that people wondering, oh, what's mom going on about lately? That may foreshadow Alzheimer or dementia?
Sure. So I'm going to start with something where it shows that it's not.
Okay.
For instance, we all say, where are my keys? We all do that, right?
My husband does that too.
We're stressed. We're doing, trying to multitask, which really isn't possible. And we just forget where we put the keys or the cell phone or whatever it is. It's not a matter of whether you've lost the keys, did you forget what the keys are for? That's the difference. Now, if you put the keys in the refrigerator, that's a different story. Or you put your cell phone in the microwave. I've heard of people doing that.
Wow.
That's an issue. It could be something like mom is a great cook and for some reason it doesn't taste the same. She's leaving out ingredients because she forgot a recipe been making all her life. And this could be a man too. I'm the cook in the family, but in this case, I'm mentioning woman. Or dad walks into the family room or living room and just stops and he doesn't know why he came in there.
Well, we do that too.
A little bit, but it also could be that he forgets what that room is for.
Wow, I love that, because that really clarify things. Like, you forget the keys, that's okay, but what the keys are for, that's really a much clearer distinction.
Or the driving issue, which is so hard for many people and families, because that's our independence, that's our control, that's our to some people that's the embodiment. They just love to drive, and they may say, I'm a great driver, never had an accident, never had a ticket, but suddenly there's some dents and scratches on that new car. Or you're driving with them and people are honking at them. Or they ask themselves, why is everybody honking at me? Well, I'm driving fine. They don't realize that they're not reacting. They're not maybe looking over the shoulder the way they should. Their reaction time to what they're supposedly seeing is not the same. And that's where it gets into a concern, because it's not just about, driving and getting a ticket. You could hurt somebody, you could hurt property, you could get sued and lose everything.
Yeah. And I love all those little tips and pointers. And then you mentioned something earlier on about, it's not just about the care, the medical care, that type of things. I think the way I interpret it, it needs to be more 360, the self-care piece, managing sleep, the environment, other areas. So can you elaborate a little bit on that, like in terms of managing care, or maybe make it even more precise? So when you say, you call call in to support a carer, you want to have this management kind of the way to manage a situation. So can you tell us, how does it look like when they work with you?
Sure. So again, it's a holistic approach. It's looking at the big picture. We're asking questions like, if they're still at home, are they still safe? Is the home safe from tripping hazards or fall or burning things, like keeping the oven on, wandering, escaping because the house is not secure and they're just taking off. Are they getting good care if they have some other conditions that are coming on? Are they happy? Are they thriving at home? I mean, we all want to stay in our own homes and age in place independently. But if any of those answers are negative, then people have to start looking at other options. And again, it goes back to, if you're thinking that it's getting to that time to have those discussions and to be considering bringing in care or looking at housing options, it probably is. And that's the time to talk about it, not again in a emergency or a crisis. So again, I try to help them work through those issues. It's like soft skills, hard skills. Some things are specific recommendations. This is a good way to manage that behavior or that care, like repeated questions or being able to take care of themselves, their activities of daily living. It can be so many other issues that we bring together a team. Whatever needs to be brought in, whether it's the in-home care or housing or legal or financial, I put together that team, because it isn't just one person and one off. It's not like a transaction. It's a total look at the care. But again, my focus is on the caregiver, the carer, so they can take care of the care recipient, the person with dementia. Most people are focused on the latter, not on the former. Right. So when I talk to people, just like me, one of the first things I did after we realized mom had dementia and she lost her home was start attending a support group.
Yeah.
And of course, there are many more groups like that and other resources to help families through this that didn't exist when I was starting my journey 16, 17 years ago, or it was hard to find.
Yeah, this information is so valuable, because sometimes it's that you not only will improve their quality of life, also the person they care for, but sometimes you just don't know this information exists. You just don't know these people can help you in so many different ways. And I think it all came down to the point that we're often reluctant to change. Like maybe sometimes we're in denial. We don't even want to figure out if mom and dad are having a problem. And we don't want to get down to the powerful of talking to consultant, because that means we have to take action. So that change can be very daunting until, as you said, things are really go out of hand and they really felt they need support. And then your information and your expertise and knowledge will really help people to navigate. So I think that's incredible. But do you agree? Are these the common factor that that's why they're reluctant to get support? Because the way I see it, it's like, why wouldn't anybody want this information? Because they would help them in so many ways.
Right. One, it goes back to what you were just saying. It's kind of like they don't know what they don't know, right? And they don't know what resources are out there. And it was harder back then because there were there were fewer directories, or the internet was still a little relatively new at the time. Now there's a lot more information and misinformation, and knowing who to trust in terms of resources. So it's out there, but you have to know what to look for. And I do. I mean, whether it's to find advisors in another part of our country or another country, I can find them. I know who to contact and what to look for, but most people don't, because they've never been in that situation. So that's where I can help.
So that really nicely lead to my next question as we wrap up this call, is that, so obviously you're very knowledgeable, especially in your area. I'm in Oregon, but what if like it's something more online, further away? Would you be able to help and direct those people as well? What do you do if someone like heard this interview and for that could be a really important call?
Mhm. Absolutely. I think that's one of the benefits that we've all seen in the last 16 months of the pandemic,
Mm,
that we can work in different ways and are a broader perspective. And I've done some other podcasts, and I'm on Clubhouse, and I have a Facebook community with people in all 6 continents. Well, not Australia, not Antarctica. I haven't found a penguin who needs caregiving, but including Australia, New Zealand, etc. And joining eWomen, which is an international organization. That's how we met. So I can help people virtually all over the country and all over the world. Now, I would have to look at each country to see what's the taxation and business registration. I've already determined that I can help people in Canada,
mm,
for instance. So there's no reason why I couldn't do it in many other places. So.
yeah. Well, thank you so much. So now, as we wrapped up, what's the best way to contact you or get more information about what you do? Would that be your website?
I think that's the best way to start, because most of my contact information and how I work and how I help people is on there. And it is Cohen, like my last name, Cohen, caregivingsupport.com. And then my email and my phone number and my Zoom and all that stuff is right on there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bill. And I've been really enjoying this interview. And I really hope people who are listening or watching this, if they think they need to learn something more about the caregiving situation, then they really should reach out.
Absolutely. And I was honored and excited to be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.